That
didn't
is
even
so
take off the
awesome.
tag.
That's so badass, man. That's so great. Yeah,
I
and I
have
think
only
it's
Adidas, bro.
yeah.
Once
It's a good
somebody
brand.
gave me, you can record. I don't mind.
Recording
okay.
in progress.
We'll do. Somebody
So,
gave you yeah.
a Reebok shirt, and I wore it for
Okay.
a few videos, but then I had to burn it down.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
It
man.
reminds me of the time that I had a boss
Mhm.
who, where I learned to basically not get involved with losers. Like,
Mhm.
so I had a boss. So that's why I almost like, I don't engage with negativity. Even like when somebody makes like a hate video on me and it's easy for me to dispel it, I don't engage with negativity. So I had a boss. I learned this from him. He was a madman. We were out for lunch, and he saw a guy who looked like to be very chummy with. They hugged it out, like men hug. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We come back to the office. Dude is in a fucking. He's like half naked. So I said, "Where's your shirt?" He said, "I burned it."
Wow.
That guy's a loser.
Wow. That's
I don't believe-
incredible.
And the dude, I look in the trash can, the fucking shirt is on fire, man.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So I learned this from him. It's like, you don't want any of the like loser energy on you, bro.
Adidas is a winner's energy, man. I love it. That is great. It's funny because when I grew up in Spain, and I was born in Spain. So my parents are both Iranian. They fled the revolution in 1979. They moved to Spain, and I was born there in 87. And I remember Adidas was like such a huge brand in Europe. It's like Spain specifically. I remember Puma, Adidas. There were a couple of other brands that were ginormous. And I see a lot more Nike in the States. I don't really see Adidas is like, I do see it sometimes, but I feel like Nike is like the dominant brand.
It's very European.
Yes.
Especially like Eastern Europe. You like Pepsi and Adidas and Queen. Like those three things are very like what we thought was like Western culture is.
Yeah. It's so funny, man. I really wanted to like pick your brain on some of the sort of that your time as an immigrant, because I can connect with you a lot. Like I've been watching your videos for a while, ever since really your Dan Bilzerian video, which
everybody keeps saying that. By
I
the
know.
way, I spoke to somebody from his team.
Okay.
And he doesn't like, I'm not going to say who. I spoke to multiple people in this team, actually. It's people who work with him, people like who manage companies for him. They all say he's the nicest guy ever. Nobody has the one bad word to say about him. It's shocking. Every single person I spoke with, they reached out to me. First of all, they told me, even though he denied it, like my friend Jason Raznick, the founder of Benzinga. So Jason specifically asked him if he knows who I am. Jason likes to go to these parties, and he always goes to the Dan Bilzerian parties. And he asked him if he knows who I am. He said, "I don't know who the fuck the guy is." But like the people who work with him, they told me he definitely knows. But they all said like he's a super, super nice guy. Like very respectful, just the coolest guy ever.
Wow.
Which was, I always thought he was a douchebag, but apparently he isn't. Like, he's just incompetent.
That's kind of what I was like curious to hear too, because I feel like he gives up this kind of vibe. He's just he's very confident, it seems like, or I don't know.
Every single women, man I spoke to who worked with him, any interaction with him, they all say, nicest guy ever.
Wow.
Super respectful, fun to hang out with. Not a bad thing to say about the dude.
Wow. But I think that's a great thing then. So if it's just like, we know kind of, because his company right now does it even exist? Has it gone bankrupt? I haven't been following
it. I don't know.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like he's doing much with it.
It's flirting with the OTC level kind of. I think if it's not even OTC, it's probably Canadian. I don't even remember where they listed.
Okay.
I don't care.
But I guess that's like the best outcome of that saga, because at least from what we're hearing, he's a good guy. It's just a matter of like, I think you were very good at pointing out just all the different things that were going on with the company that just made it look like it wasn't a functional company, especially.
I think he's playing a character, man. He was playing a character for Instagram, and it's working obviously for him. But like I think the guy in real life is just like a regular dude with money.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
you
don't
see
think
that
like he goes to bed with like 15 women like he have on Instagram posts. You know what I mean? Like
it's such a show. Yeah.
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 Okay.
I mean, I would not be surprised because you can see like where social media is at nowadays. It's like you always have this, you have two personas, right? You have the 5% of your time is on Instagram looking all happy and great. Look at how cool I am. And then the other 95%, like it's hard to tell like the loneliness that's being felt and all that stuff, or just being like just a regular guy or whatever. You know, it seems like he definitely knows how to play sort of that part of the social media cloud and everything like that.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's
Also,
really
like
interesting.
when you go deeper, you realize he's not even close to being like. There's so much shit going on on Wall Street, in banking, in the stock
Right,
market. I mean, then Bilzerian is not your problem. Believe me, bro.
right, right. And that was going to be one of my questions actually. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of my segues. So you are a unique voice on YouTube because you're somebody who, to me, so if I were to describe from my perspective, again, this is the first time we've ever met for people that are listening to this. I reached out to Tom randomly, like almost a month ago or a few weeks ago. I was like, dude, like your videos, you want to hop on and talk? You're like, sure, that'll be great. I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah, I
That's
never say
freaking
no.
awesome.
If somebody
Yeah,
asks me, I always say yes.
that's awesome.
Always.
And I really, really appreciate that, Tom. I really do. But I think what's really interesting
You
about
know,
you
you
is
know how many no's I got when I was starting out? When I was doing YouTube for years just for fun. I had a bunch of different channels. I used to do gazillion different channels. People when I say I do this for fun and I would do this for free, they think I'm just like being kind of paying lip service. Motherfucker, I did this for 3 years for free. I had a audio review channel. I had a how to do YouTube channel. I had the business of the gaming industry channel. I had like a bunch of whatever I was geeking on that point. I was just basically I was making videos on. Never made money of that for years. So basically, yeah. When I say I would do this for free, I literally did. So yeah, that's not lip service. Like I'm blessed to be able to do this now and do this for a living. I feel like I've retired. It's my dream. It's my hobby. Now making content actually allows me just to retire.
Did you see yourself in this position when you first, like when you did your first YouTube video? Like, did you have a vision for this eventually becoming that hobby that could lead you to where you are now, or it just freaking happened? Like, walk me through
this
that
was always just a hobby. It was never about the business for me. It was always a hobby. And then what happened is I quit right before the pandemic. It was not related to pandemic, actually. I quit because I was burnt out. I saw a very disturbing thing when I was working. One of my friends, he's still like one of my best friends. We used to, both of us were senior managers. And he made a horrible mistake. So we were working for I worked for one of the big four companies. I don't want to say which, but the four.
KPMG and all those guys.
Yeah, and all those guys. Yeah. So basically, we're both managing teams. We're doing transactional services. So basically, in transactional services, what you do is you do a lot of M&A work. So if a deal is being worked on, let's say like a merger, right, or an acquisition, M&A, right? So you would look at, there's a lot of due diligence being done. There's legal due diligence, not us. There's accounting due diligence, sometimes us, but other departments in the organization. And there's financial due diligence. It's basically you go through the financials, you see the financial health, stability, and try to evaluate if there's any risks, exposures, what's the true valuation is. It's usually being used in my years very, very almost never it's a deal breaker unless there's something like it's usually being done as a leverage tool. Like they'll use us if you can dig up something to make the deal a little bit sweeter, so they can say, oh, you have this bad tire over here, whatever, like if I'm using like a car analogy, right? So, and one of the other types of work we were doing beyond just M&A and due diligence and stuff like that, we would do structuring work. So in structuring, basically, there's a company, let's say, and they want to start operating in a different jurisdiction. and you would optimize that operation in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of moving parts there. You'd have to look at what's the legal framework, right? People are falling asleep at this point.
No way.
what's the
They're
legal
listening
framework?
intently.
No, well, okay. Like what kind of, like if you go to the US, right? C Corp, S Corp, LLC, partnership, whatever, right?
Yep.
So what's the legal framework? What's the regulatory framework? What's the accounting standards? If it's like it's a US GAAP or FRS, whatever. And one of this, a lot of the moving parts is how do you move money? So let's say you open a subsidiary in a US company opens a subsidiary, let's say in the UK, right? So so the subsidiary makes money. How do you move money up the chain, right? Mm-hmm. So what kind of, there's this thing called withholding tax. When you pay money from one country to another, there's a withholding tax. Mm-hmm. And there's different treaties. Each country has a tax treaty with another country. Well, not every country has it, but there's a very wide network of these treaties. The US and UK definitely have one, by the way, but it's almost, it's very common. And you try to structure it basically to fit that, even though you shouldn't. There's this thing called treaty shopping, which is not allowed, but basically you try to make the business kind of optimize the business. So anyways, long story short, big deal, massive numbers. I want to say hundreds of millions, massive. Yeah. I don't want to say which. And deal is going forward, pretty much on the brink of getting signed. And my best friend from work, who manages a separate team, I wasn't working on that deal. He realizes that somebody on his team made a mistake that cascaded all the way up, and nobody caught it. Not the manager below him, not himself, and not the partner above him. Wow! But basically, like as the senior manager, you're kind of the goalkeeper for your partner. So the way it works, think of an army, right? General, like there's the colonel, right? Colonel, then there's the sergeant, then there's troops. Yeah. Like it's his mistake, basically. As a senior manager, that's your mistake. You should have known better. Yep. And the massive deal, dude was on the brink of killing himself, bro. Wow. It was horrible. Imagine the pressure, like the psychological, and for days and days, I think I had to talk to him to save him from doing something horrible. Wow. And what ended up happening eventually, God fixed it, because the deal fell through, believe it or not. 1 in a million. Deal fell through on something completely different and unrelated. Wow. And then my friend was like, whew. And then I said, I quit. Wow. Yeah. I said, I quit, motherfucker. This is not happening to me ever again. Yeah. I'm done. I was already on the brink of being done. I had a few incidents with the partner I was working with. Yeah. I was already kind of exhausted, burnt out. I had an incident where basically he told me, oh, if you leave now, you're fired. I had a thing with the family. And I had such a horrible relationship at this point. And then I saw this. I was like, later, boys, I'm out. Wow. I'm out, and I don't give a shit what happens. So I quit. I was like, never gonna go back for a big four. Not if I'll do anything, it's gonna be super chill. I don't give a fuck. Like I have 3 kids, and like my kids are already getting older. I haven't seen them grow up at all. Like my kids were at this point was like 7, 5, and 3. I was like, missed the entire fucking childhood, bro. I'm done. I'm gonna go fucking build chairs or whatever. And then I quit. Pandemic starts. All of a sudden, my channel with the Bilzerian videos starts popping. Hundreds of thousands of views per video. And then I get the fucking ad revenue. It's like, what the fuck is this? I didn't even know that there's this. It was monetized, but it was like pretty much beer money. You know what I mean? I would make like $100 every 3 or 4 months. Right. I didn't even know how to withdraw the money from ads. I didn't have like a bank account.
Set up an account.
Yeah, whatever. I was like, and then all of a sudden I open it up with like tens of thousands of dollars, bro. Wow. I was like, really? I can make this thing which I do like for laughs, for fun, and get paid. And then it all started from there. And then people started asking other stuff. Then I had the Nikola story, which I was chasing. Yep. It was like Dan was not a douchebag, and but Nikola, they were fucking douchebags, bro. Yeah. They almost took down
Trevor Milton. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was following that. Weren't you like kind of saying? I think it was you and somebody else was like, giving the sort of what the truth was about the company at the time, certainly, and how much of a
Nate Anderson.
That's right.
Hindenburg Research.
That's right. That's right.
Nate was even super nice to me when this whole thing blew up. Nate is the guy who saved me.
Really?
Nobody knows this because he's such a nice guy. So when this thing blew up, so everybody saw that he was right and I was right, because we were talking about this when Nikola was like, what, $80 per share?
Yeah. It was
crazy.
like a peak or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it blew up, and then they took down my channel. I already had the notification from YouTube. Your channel is gone. So I was in the hospital with my kid, and I come out of the hospital. I get into a car. I'm exhausted, bro. All of a sudden, your channel is gone. So they fucking striked every single video that had any sort of B-roll of their stuff. Wow. And so Nate basically called up a reporter from the Financial Times, and he told her the story. And she did the story about it, and she had to get comment from YouTube PR. And when they heard about it, they basically removed the strikes.
Wow.
So,
oh my goodness.
So they removed one strike. So then I had only two, but I was back kind of being compliant. And then I had two strikes. The first thing I did next morning is basically go at Nikola. I said, you have 24 hours to remove my strikes, unless otherwise I'm going to start the fucking GoFundMe, and we're going to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I remember that
sue
video.
Your ass. And this thing worked. Hours later, the strikes were gone. I went, because that's like God. They teach you, like, you have to play offense. You can't just.
Yeah, of course.
I was like, fuck you. I was so low at this point. I was like,
yeah.
When you have nothing to lose, you basically like, fuck
yeah, you had no fear. You were backed against the corner essentially at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in a sense, and just the warrior comes out at that point, right? Yeah. It's like, I'm coming after you. Dude, that's such a, oh my God, that's so wild. It's like one of the things that I caught from the stories you were telling there, and I kind of want to see if I can draw a parallel. So the first story you told about your friend at the company who was making a deal and, in a position where he made a mistake, and it was so much pressure. He was feeling so much pressure or such, blight that he was freaking almost at wit's end. Right. So when I worked,
it's devastating, bro.
Right. At the company I was before, so I worked at Tesla for 4 years, and I started this channel a few months after. But before that, I was a director of business intelligence and pricing at the company before. And we were going through a deal with a private firm where they were doing the due diligence to acquire the company. Okay. And I was in charge of my team. Me and my team were essentially in charge of basically providing all the data around the company. So I was very close to that process. And I remember, you told me that story, I started getting goosebumps because I was in that same exact situation where I was responsible for the whole data set, and then I caught something almost at the very last minute where I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I totally messed this up. Like something where the different facilities that we had different numbers, okay? And they were like, I don't know, there was a join that I messed up somewhere. And I can't tell you the feeling that I had. Everything was just tight. My chest was tight. I honestly think I was having a panic attack for like 2 days straight almost. Thankfully,
you can't
we were
sleep,
able to
you
fix
can't
it.
eat,
Dude,
you can do nothing. Yeah.
It was crazy. And so what I'm really curious to hear, so you take that, and that was one of the main things that said you
and
quit.
By the way, if you work in a consultancy, there's no, it's like you're bound to have, you're not a robot. You're always going to, this moment is sometimes going to come.
It's impossible to be perfect. Yeah. It's absolutely impossible. And that was one of the main lessons I learned from that. It's like, dude, you're going to make it. The biggest thing I learned from that experience is the bigger things you do, the bigger your mistakes. That's just what happens when you're responsible for bigger stuff. But you also talked about
By the way, Nikola are doing better. They're doing now what they should have done in the beginning, which is not hire Trevor. Trevor was not needed for this company at all. Like outside of the PR hype, look, Nikola, they have another problem. I think for people who are not familiar with Nikola had two people, basically, they have three people managing the company from day one, which was Steve Gursky, who led the SPAC, former GM, super smart guy, obviously. I mean, come on. Look him up. He's a smart dude. You have also very good investors. I'm not going to name them, but like really smart investors, including one that's a very known one. I'm not going to repeat them. And you had a guy who used to be the chief operating officer of a company called Worthington. It's a massive public company from the Midwest. Okay, Worthington Industries, and his name is Mark. So Mark was the CEO. Steve Gursky was the chairman of the board, I believe, and Trevor was whatever capacity, I don't remember. So basically, Trevor was maybe chairman of the board, and Mark was the CEO, and Steve was just and I don't remember the roles.
Yeah.
But basically, when they kicked out Trevor, they kept Mark, even though Mark was part of the original gang that basically made all those. Like, he was around when Trevor were making all these crazy statements. They were making like hydrogen on site. I remember all this bullshit that Trevor was spewing. He was the CEO when Trevor was basically saying this, and he didn't say anything, right? So now he's still the CEO, and he's a smart guy, very smart guy, and he's doing all the right stuff for the company. He's definitely like killing it right now, and I can explain why. But he has responsibility for the shit that happened when Trevor was there. I don't understand how he gets to stay, but it's just my opinion. As far as like what Mark did after Trevor left, which is exactly what Nikola should have been. They're kind of like Hylian. Very interesting small business is going to make a lot of money, not going to be very disruptive, but it's going to be very relevant. Look at what they're doing right now. They took a fucking existing S-Way Iveco. You're not from Europe. So Iveco is a big brand in Europe.
Okay.
For trucks. In Europe, you don't have a lot of these big rigs like you have in the US. In Europe, it's more kind of the daily trucks. The distances are not that huge. So there's a very kind of like a workhorse truck. It's called the Iveco S-Way. A name that wouldn't work in the US, by the way. S-Way. It's like a cultural thing. But anyway, it works for an Italian company. It makes sense. So they took the Iveco truck. They put I think a Romeo battery in. I don't remember whose battery, and they slap a logo on it, Nikola, and it's fucking brilliant. Here you go. And with a daily kind of delivery truck, you don't care about the weight as much of the battery like you would with a class 8. You know what I mean?
Right. 18-wheeler, like the big guys.
So it actually works. It works, and Sandy Monroe checked it out and he liked it. So it's a nice little business of electric trucks. Basically, it's kind of retrofitted. They're retrofitting an existing truck. Iveco is kind of a JV with this thing. So it's not going to be the next Tesla. Okay. That was the kind of, the
right. But it doesn't need to be, right, for it to be successful.
It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be. It never needed to be. Trevor was fucking this grandeur complex.
Yeah.
So kudos to Mark for basically doing this the right way.
Yeah.
But he has responsibility for what Trevor did. He was the CEO. He can't say, I didn't know, I wasn't part of that. So just my opinion.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's become very interesting to watch too. It's like, as you know, I've been following Tesla since 2012. Like, I first invested December 5th, 2012 was the first time I bought Tesla. And Dave Lee, which I know you spoke with, he had these brilliant guy. He had these mega threads on Tesla Motors Club forums online. And around that time I had got my first job a couple years before that. And I started accumulating a few dollars. I went from like negative 100,000 net worth to negative 80,000 net worth because of all the student loans and whatever. Like, okay, so if I want to get myself out of this freaking hole, I got to figure out how to build wealth. And I stumbled upon the forums and I saw sort of Dave's mega threads. And, long story short, basically up 10 years later, I worked for Tesla. It basically gave me financial independence that entire journey, which has been I'm so blessed and thankful for that. But the bigger story there is that it really does seem like Tesla is on a path of just really taking, say, majority share of whatever's going on in the EV space, say, from my opinion, but there's still going to have to be other players that come in and try to take on the things that Tesla just physically won't be able to do, either because of monopoly laws or there's simply room for more players. So like, how do you think about that, say, in the next 5 years? Do you think this is going to be a thing where the legacy, or like the next 10 years, do you think it's a thing where
it's a legacy?
Thing? Okay. Yeah. Walk me through how you're thinking about it. Yeah.
Okay. What's the biggest auto category in the United States? Trucks.
Yeah.
They're not in trucks.
Yeah.
At least I haven't seen one yet. So that's wide open. Whoever takes the trucks, and so you have a few players that are already kind of gunning for it. Nobody took the trucks yet.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the Cybertruck, which is timing unclear, and also it's very kind of hit or miss. You either love it or you hate it. As far as it doesn't look like a classic truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Rivian is out there, very expensive truck, more kind of like a gadgety little truck. It doesn't like it can't like if you've seen the Rivian, it can't do what the F-150 can do.
It's like an outdoorsy adventure. Yeah.
Like say, if you want a Gladiator or Rivian, you know what I mean? It's kind of you have to be an asshole. No, just I'm just saying this because my friend and partner Justin, he drives a Gladiator, so that's why I keep busting his balls.
Yeah, Sense Invest, right?
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
and then you have the F-150, which is kind of the gold standard, and they have all the expertise and the knowledge. So if they can just slap on the battery on the F-150, they're gonna make a big dent in the category. So that's completely open. So it's not like trucks are wide open, right? Even two-wheel category is wide open. I mean, there's a guy up there in Seattle who's doing Archimoto, who does kind of this. So there's a lot of room in electric vehicles, if you just stop thinking about it like a Ford or sedan. You know what I mean?
Yep, 100%. But do you think those players are going to be legacy players like Ford, GM, or do you think this is a place where it's going to be the new entrants? Because the way I think about it, and this is where I'm struggling. So from my standpoint, I'm struggling to see how Ford and GM can make that switch because of the amount of debt that they have on their balance sheet, plus the amount of things that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You have the bureaucracy from 100 years ago. You got you got unions. You have all these layers. And then I don't know if you ever read the Innovator's Dilemma, but it's basically this story that basically says that the more entrenched you are in a specific thing, and then a disruptor comes in, the only outcome you have is failure, because it's basically impossible to turn the ship 90 degrees to the left or to the right, right? So do you think this is an instance where, do you think that the legacy folks are still going to be able to survive into the next 10 years? Or do you see this being like a bunch of brand new brands are going to come out of nowhere and take the remaining market share that Tesla doesn't have today? How do you think about that? Or you haven't thought about that deeply? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
No, I thought about
it.
Like if you ask SMR, he will tell you, no, they're going to be bankrupt for sure in like 3 years, right? He's very aggressive on this, or 5 years. So I don't know.
Oh, Stephen Mark Ryan, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, SMR, gotcha.
So he'll tell you, like, he's very aggressive. I love that about him.
Yeah.
So far, he has 100% success rate. So, fuck the haters. So he hasn't been wrong yet. So also, like, people are, his portfolio is 100% Tesla. Well, so far it worked out fine for him. Nope.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Yeah.
It's gonna crash. Well, talk to me when it crashes, man. Okay.
Right.
Anyways, so the way I look at it is very simple. So they're definitely, all the legacy OEMs, they have an uphill battle because of what you mentioned. Ford is struggling with 10 years of neglect, complete neglect. GM are a little bit better. So GM has better financials, slightly better infrastructure for electrics. Ford is basically starting from scratch. They had the guy who built closets for a CEO, I forgot his name. And then they got in actually a good CEO now. But he's like so behind and shit. But as you mentioned, there's other issues with, how many resources you can commit. You still have to service what actually, feeds you now. So this, we're not going to get into that right now, but so the question is, can they survive? It's very tough to say. I think that the answer is how should I put it? Can they pivot fast enough without completely destroying the infrastructure that they have right now? So for them to do that, you'd have what Ford are doing right now. We like to take shots at Ford, but basically spinning off the entire EV business into a separate company actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a Hail Mary for them right now because they're so far behind. But I mean, if you separate it and you say, okay, 100% of resources for that are going to go, and you can definitely generate some cash flow. If I mean, look, it's definitely they cannot coexist in this legacy OEM with how big Tesla has gotten.
Yeah.
EVs and internal combustion engines in the same company cannot coexist. It's just Tesla is so far ahead on engineering, on infrastructure, on engineering of engineering. As basically, it's kind of it's exponential growth.
Yeah,
it's very hard for them. Well, the one thing I will tell you is like Ford, at least they have the F-150, which is a very strong brand. So Ford's standard of execution for that is not that high, to be honest. It's a big fan base, and if you can just put out, slap a battery on F-150, make it look normal and serviceable, they're going to sell a lot of these. There's a lot of loyalty for that brand in the US. So they have that. GM is in the tighter spot. Like GM's brand loyalty is trash. I mean, think about it, right? Why would you buy a price? Is like mainly like price. Nobody buys a GM and say, "Oh, well." There's a few people who are like Chevy guys, Chevy versus Ford. Like, but mainly like it's a commodity. A car is now a commodity, right? So Ford F-150 is not a commodity. It's kind of a loyalty brand. Tesla isn't a commodity. It's a loyalty brand. So that's why I'm saying Ford, even though they're in a shitty situation financially, much worse than GM. They have the F-150. It's such a strong brand. Their execution level has to be just enough on par.
No, that makes perfect sense. It's going to be very interesting to see. I think the one thing that I'm afraid of with these legacy automakers, like say GM or a Ford, like say they aren't able to turn the ship, like the way you described it, like you have to take a risk and you have to be able to pivot really, really quickly without sort of collapsing under your own weight in a sense, right? So like I'm curious like how this is going to play out, in the next, say, 3 to 5 years. Like if that doesn't happen and the ripples that means, like say Ford and GM cannot, and in my head, it's like if they don't do this in 5 years, my opinion is that they're going to be in such a corner that they're not going to be able to remain profitable, and they're going to have to figure out how to sort of, either liquidate assets. I have no idea how that stuff works usually, but they're going to have to do something. But like the waves, the shock waves that's going to send through the economy is going to be very interesting, because that's thousands of jobs lost, tens of thousands of jobs lost. And how quickly is the economy going to like come back and sort of like
that's why
fill that gap,
Joe Biden kiss their ass.
Right, exactly. They're trying to set themselves up for a stimulus or something,
But they don't understand.
Or from a bailout.
This is 2022. You can't create narratives anymore.
Right.
You're getting called out. When like that's the problem with Biden, bro. He doesn't understand that. So it's not a political statement. It's a factual statement. I hate all politicians. So, kiss my ass on both sides. Democrats and Republican. Both of you can kiss my ass. So when Biden basically said, it's Putin's fault, the inflation has gotten so bad, and we were talking about the February numbers, legacy February numbers. I think this, like 15 years ago, 20, nobody calls you out on that. And it's like, but now Reddit is out there, you're getting called out immediately. So he can't, they're trying to manage these situations the way they used to be managed like 20 years ago. Let's just create a narrative that GM is leading. You're gonna get called out. How many votes you think Biden lost by this GM shenanigan?
I think a lot, man. I think a lot of votes. What do you think?
It's a bad look.
Yeah,
it's a bad look. Because it's like a blatant lie. It's not even about like, I think GM has the better potential. That would have been a fair statement, right?
Yeah.
I believe in the American blah 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 blah. No, it's like, so I completely. The way he did it is like, it was so. I felt like I was in.
They're leading. They're the leaders. They're like.
It was like Venezuela / like USSR kind of level of propaganda. It's like, what the fuck is... Bad move, bro.
I'm right there with you, man. I think, and I can't remember. I think one of my earliest videos on my channel was because I had literally just had left Tesla, And then the first time I heard the president of the United States talk about sort of like electric vehicles in earnest, he was given the credit to somebody else. And I was like, okay, I worked there for 4 years. I went through 2017, 2018, 2019, peak FUD. Everybody's just shitting on the company left and right. I'm going home and I have friends and family telling me, dude, you should leave your job because Elon's losing his mind and they're going bankrupt, blah, blah, blah. And then we're able to turn the corner or, keep going where we're going. And then actually the stock market and everybody else realizes just how good of a thing Tesla is from that perspective. And then the first time the president of the United States really talks about it in earnest, gives just the credit to somebody else. I was like, I'm like, why do I feel so angry? Because I'm like the same as you. Like I'm not really a left or a right guy. I'm kind of like, I don't really pick sides. I'm more about character and individual. Like what can the individual do for the country? But then you have this person come out and be like, all the work you did, all the work you guys, all your friends and your coworkers did. Nah, that's not really what was happening. It freaking hurt, man. That really hurt to watch. And it left an impression. And I know it left an impression on a lot of different people as well.
I'll ask you one question. What did Mary Barra do? I'm not even not Mary Barra versus Elon. What did she do for electric vehicles? Except for investing in a Scamula, whatever the
Scamula.
What did she do? I mean,
I don't know, dude. When did she join GM?
Wait, she made a car that caught fire. They had to recall every single unit, right?
Yeah.
So, and then Nikola. That's the only
yeah. I honestly can't think of anything. Like the only way I can think of that narrative making any sense is like, okay, so GM had the EV1, 2 decades ago or however long that was.
Primal sin. EV1 is not something to be proud of.
Exactly.
EV1 is a shame. It's like a taint forever, ever, ever. It's like Xerox and the personal computer.
It's so true.
It's the cataclysmic mistake of the decade, of the century. This is worse than Xerox and IBM, bro.
Yeah.
Like you had it.
Yeah.
You had it like 2 decades before everybody else. Nobody was like, why?
They just had to keep going. That's all they had to do. Yeah. I don't know, man.
And then Toyota, they had it. They had it with the Prius. Again, Prius wasn't, people forget how long ago Priuses came out. Mm-hmm. When Prius came out, nobody was like a hybrid. Like, it's like saying email. You know what I mean? Like, and they had it, and they all.
Yeah, it's frustrating to watch for sure. And when I saw that whole thing happen, I was again, I was really upset by it. But the one thing you said just now was that these politicians can't really get away. Even just like institutions in general. Nowadays, we live in a world where people can't really get away with saying that kind of stuff anymore because the population kind of has alternative ways to getting the correct information. Do you feel a responsibility to be that side of the story with your channel? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, of telling what's actually happening. How do you view that?
I'm like a columnist. I have my opinion. I go out every day and I share my opinion. Sometimes I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. I'm not fucking pretending to be the next Warren Buffett. I'm not the oracle. Just a guy with an opinion, and I like to call it like I see it. My main strength is not in the quality of my analysis. There's better analytics guys than me for sure. There's better investors. There's people who know more about me than, in finance. My strength is I have a big platform and I owe nothing to nobody. I can say whatever the fuck I want about whoever the fuck I want. I have absolutely nothing. The only thing I have is I have a relationship with a company called TipRanks. And the only reason I have it is because I fucking used the product for a whole year on my videos. They just reached out to me and said, hey, you've been using our shit. You want an affiliate link? I said, sure, why not? I'm using the product. I'm loving it. Sure. And then we built a relationship. That's the that's the only thing I have, like a business relationship. And even that, I honestly don't give a fuck. If at some point I need to say some bad shit about them, I'll say it, and so be it. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not like, they don't own me. You understand what I'm saying? The reason they don't own me is because this whole business is built on people who watch my shit. That's my only fiduciary duty. I don't have a big sponsor, not Webull, not Robinhood, not anybody, nobody. I don't have a boss. I don't have an editor. I don't have nothing that hold me back from saying that Nikola is a scam or from that fucking, Joe Biden is a fucking idiot. Nobody can ban me or nobody can do nothing to me. So when people go to mainstream media and they turn on CNBC or that stuff, they're getting a very managed narrative. So like a lot of the Tesla folks, they know exactly what I'm talking about. To this day, the things to this day, like you go to mainstream media, it's gotten better. But like go look at clips of Kramer or Phil LeBeau or all these other talking head idiots like from years and years. You see it. So people like my strength is okay. I'm not always going to be right, but I'm going to tell it exactly like I see it. And I won't mind if I offend anybody, and I don't mind if like I don't need access to Mary Barra. Like they won't get an interview with Mary Barra. Okay, fuck. I don't need nothing from anybody. Not from Ford, not from GM, not even from Tesla, not even from Palantir. Do you know this? Like I had this thing where Palantir, but oh Tom, you're in love with Palantir. Palantir had the Q3 financials. The call was managed by Sham Sankar, who's the chief operating officer, not Alex Karp. And I made a whole video saying that this was a horrible call. I said Sham did a poor job. He was fucking cringe. It was horrific. And I 20 minutes of just basically ripping him a new one. So before that video, they asked me if I want to do an interview. Since that interview, since that video, they haven't replied.
Pulled a request.
So no, they haven't replied. I said that's the interview, and I kind of feel about it because I honestly, even Palantir was like my baby, right?
Yeah.
Like Tom, it's Palantir. I don't care. I'll say whatever the fuck I want, and people because the only people who my community exists financially because people go on Patreon. And they pay $5 per month and they watch my videos and they watch ads. So basically my audience is the only ones I give a shit about. And so you might say, well, Tom, if you say something against audience who doesn't like, let's say I change my mind about Palantir, right? Or Tesla. And I say some shit about, okay, some people will leave because, oh, I hate you now. New people will join that hate Tesla or hate Palantir, right? So I don't mind. I have complete freedom, which mainstream media doesn't have, and that's why people fuck with me. That's the only reason. It's not because like, there's so much better like financial guys. Like they look at people like do YouTube videos finding mistakes in my DCFs. Motherfucker, who gives a shit, bro? Okay, so you find mistakes in my DCF, or like they like, oh, you misquoted that, or it's like, sure, bro, no worries. It's not my strength. My strength is my independence. I can say whatever I want. And people want unfiltered information since you remember when we were younger, like CNN and Fox was actual like outlets where you could get like, there was like seeing what like news and mainstream media has become today is kind of alarming because we kind of saw before it went to shit. It was actually good. This, whatever the fuck this is.
Yeah, it's a weird place. It's very tabloid nature. Yeah,
it's like Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
Is he on TV? Or
yeah, he's on TV. Yeah,
he's on TV. Though.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's a crazy.
I don't mind watching. Like if I watch, what's the guy with the glasses? The English guy, a funny guy.
Oliver.
John Oliver.
Yeah.
Okay, so I watch John Oliver. So I know kind of the narrative. It's an entertainment show. I don't want to turn on CNN and watch John Oliver tell me what the actual news are. This is what it's become. You know what I mean?
Dude, let me give you a perfect example of this. And I don't know how this is going to make you feel, but when the whole Russia-Ukraine stuff started, and obviously you're Russian and you've talked about this a lot. You know who I came to get my Russia-Ukraine news?
I was actually born in Crimea. You know how fucked up that is?
Were you really? Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah, it's so confusing.
Wow. Dang. But I came to your channel, which is like the weirdest. I didn't go to CNN. I didn't go to Fox. And I don't know if this is good or bad, but I came to your channel to get information about what's going on and trying to get a take from like the ground. And I think obviously that speaks to the fact that you're a trustworthy voice. But I think the bigger thing it says is like, we don't have institutions that are supposed to be reporting news and information that people actually trust. And that is such a weird place to be in, you know? It's such an odd thing, man. How much?
At least we're not as bad as Russia.
Sure.
They literally 2022 and they canceled. They did something I didn't know it was possible. They completely shut everything down, like social media, every sort of media. I don't know how they did it, bro.
Yeah. It's I'm not very familiar with that side of like the country, but it does seem like
everything down, bro.
That
There's
seems hard to
nothing in
do.
Russia.
You can't so you can't be in contact with anybody on the ground there. Like, can you reach out to anybody? Can they bypass it somehow?
No, you can reach, but every media they consume, it's like you can't on Twitter, you can on Facebook, you can on Instagram. Everything is basically blocked, and
Wow.
and the entire like all the foreign media is out, is banned. It's just like Russian media, and it's insane, bro. There was a rally, man. Like they just did a rally with Putin, and like they packed like 70,000 people in the stadium.
Did they like a sudden cut or something? I just literally watched that right before this.
There was a problem there. Yeah. Nobody knows exactly what happened. Maybe they get hacked or something. I don't know. But you can see it looks like fucking Nazi Germany, bro.
Wow.
It's the same vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the fucking Z thing and like, it's like, what the fuck is this? I was watching this. I was like, what the fuck is this?
So this is very different from the usual, like how it usually is in Russia. Like, is there a stark difference in how it's developed? Like, do you have any insight into how it's like evolved?
No, it's different. He's popular. Like Putin isn't like the North Korean guy where it's like just fear. He's genuinely like popular in Russia. But something like this, it's just kind of this. It's kind of a combine wartime rally behind the flag mentality, plus block off all foreign media, just pump the Russian narrative, and you get this fucking frenzy of people like, let's go.
Hardcore populist, yeah.
So look, I spent about 6 hours watching Russian propaganda on Saturday, a week ago. And when I say Russian propaganda, not the shitty one. Not the cheap one for the idiots, the good one for the intellectuals. And it's good. It's really good. Yeah. It's well done. I had to call a friend of mine. So look, even though I sound like my accent is very thick, I'm really fucked up because I have a thick accent in English when I speak, and I have a thick accent in Russian when I speak. I don't have a language where I sound like a normal human being anymore.
Dude, I wanted to talk to you about this because I forget who you brought this up with, man, but that connected with me. Dude, I was born in Spain and I lived there for 12 years. And for like, even now I still have a slight accent, but when I speak Spanish, I have a hardcore English accent. And when I speak English for the longest time, even to this day, I have like a Spanish accent. And I felt like you said, I didn't have a home.
And I can hear Farsi, and I can hear also Farsi. I can hear it because you sound like Patrick by David. It's the same. It's the same accent. I'm gonna have him on my channel real soon. He said he's gonna want to come on. We share very similar opinions about macro and stuff and politics.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. But yeah, that's when you made that statement, I was like, wow, like you described it so well because for the longest time, and I wanted to ask you a question about that, but I'll push it to later because we're on this.
Wait, I forgot to tell you what happened.
Hold your thought. I was going to say.
So I called my friend. It was like a real Russian, and he actually like not brainwashed.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I just watched this and this and this, and it's really good. And then what am I missing? And then he told me, hey, this and that. And so I had to be pulled out of the propaganda because it was really working.
Wow.
Because it was really well done. I knew it was bullshit, but I was like, what am I missing? And then he told me, okay, this and this and this. And very, very well done. Anyway, so tell me the story.
No, I was going to say, like, are you surprised by that at all? Like, did you think Russia was like, are you surprised with what has happened in the last, say, 3 to 4 weeks? And are you surprised by how, now that you saw this propaganda, by how like sophisticated it is?
I'm mainly surprised that they actually invaded. I didn't think they would. Because it's a losing game for them.
Right.
People think that Russia taking over Ukraine is a win. It's not a win. It's going to be it's the end of the Russian dominance, unfortunately. And people like there's a lot of Russia apologists online. It's including some Americans actually, which is weird. I'm very weirded out by this shit, bro. There's some Americans like with like hatred towards America. I don't understand these people. Like they're so filled with self-hatred and loathing, bro. So they kind of Like, oh, Russia is beating Ukraine. Yeah, motherfucker, that's not the point. Nobody thinks that Ukrainians are going to win this. Even though they're putting up the fight of the century, nobody gave them a shot.
Right.
They're basically going like it's like a fucking 15-year-old kid going with Mike Tyson in his prime in the ring, and this is like round 8. It's like nobody thinks this kid is going to beat Mike Tyson, but what they did so far is fucking insane. It's insane, bro. They're fucking beasts. Anyways, so it's a lose-lose for him because like once he invaded, he basically put himself in this impossible situation. He needs the sanctions to go away. People like to talk about the sanctions that are going to backfire on the US. Probably they'll backfire on everybody. When you sanction like a big producer of commodities and energy, it's going to be ripple effects.
Yeah.
But you just people don't realize this, but by the sanctions are very destructive to the Russian economy. We might suffer pricing, inflation, and all that for sure. But once you basically cut them off of their foreign reserves, their currency is going to trash. That's why they didn't open their stock market for 3 weeks or whatever. It's closed since they invaded because they know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's still closed or not. I think it might be. I don't even give a shit at this point. It's who cares?
Yeah.
It's double-digit inflation per month. It's insanity. It's basically hyperinflation. Russia's headed to 1998. As far as when the central bank of Russia does not have foreign currency to prop up their own ruble, it's a very dangerous slope. Anyways, so he needs the sanctions to go away because they need the money. So they're getting enough money right now to survive because energy prices are high and commodities prices are high. So he's getting foreign currency in the country, but it's not enough for basically to counter effect the devaluation of the ruble. They need access to the $640 billion of foreign reserves they have frozen right now. So the only way out for him right now is just to get a deal done with Ukraine. If he conquers Ukraine, or if God forbid he kills Zelensky, he's done. That's why. Did you ever ask yourself why Russia isn't bombarding Kiev? I mean, they have the sky, right?
Yeah.
So why not? Why doesn't he bombard Kiev?
It's the wrong move. That's the only reason, right?
Killing Zelensky is pretty much his GG for Putin. It's done. He needs a deal. He needs a deal done because the deal is his only way out of the sanctions. If there's a deal and everybody's like kumbayaing around the campfire, we can roll back the sanctions, which is what everybody wants.
Yeah.
And basically then he goes back to normal. If he kills him, if they conquer Ukraine, okay, great. You're stuck with this country you have to provide for. And there's massive sanctions, so good luck with that.
Yeah. And a population that probably is extremely unhappy from what I've seen. I don't know anything about the dynamic, but it does seem like Ukrainians are fiercely independent. Yeah.
Including the ethnic Russians in Ukraine who fucking hate him right now. And if you leave, okay, a lot of people died, you spent a lot of money, and you left Ukraine basically back to square one. Okay, good. Anyways, so he needs a deal done to roll back the sanctions. And because he can't get anything on the ground to push leverage against the Ukrainians, so he can't get a good deal. So it's a problem. He needs more achievements. So he starts basically bombarding civilian population, and then they get even more zealous about going anti-Russia. So his entire plan is a total bust. The plan was roll in, government is going to run away. They're a bunch of idiots, right? Ukrainian army is going to fall apart. Locals are going to love us because this is like in Crimea. This is exactly what happened. Like people don't understand, but Crimea was not conquered. Crimea, there was not a single bullet fired. It was just annexed and gladly, because Crimea is pretty much Russia, to be honest. I know Ukrainian people right now are hating me for this, but I'm not pro-Putin. Fuck Putin and fuck is no problem saying this. But Crimea was always part of Russia until I think in the 50s, Khrushchev actually gave it to Ukraine. I think he was Ukrainian, but it was a symbolic act. It meant nothing in USSR because it was just kind of a symbolic act. But Khrushchev basically made Crimea Ukrainian, but it's ethnically Russian. completely. It's not Ukraine.
Yeah.
So they made a referendum there if they want to join Russia. Like 97% voted yes. It's insane.
Okay.
It's not a so he said Crimea in Russia. He got such a huge boost out of it. Everybody was on board. Massive PR boost. Crimea was a fucking success for him. The way he looked at it, he took it. Nobody died. They welcomed him there, and then I think he had the same idea for the rest of Ukraine, because okay, so they're weak. Let's just break apart these It's a puppet government. They're not like, if you look at Afghanistan, you see what a puppet government looks like. Yeah. When you roll on a puppet government and a puppet army, you saw it's like cobwebs. Yep. It goes away. Yep. I think he was surprised. They was like, oh shit, these guys are for real. Like they really, the Ukrainians are really like, the army is for real, the government's for real. They actually believe in their own cause, and they're actually like fierce fighters, bro. Like these guys are fighting literally to the last bullet. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah,
they're the most fierce warriors, bro, I've ever seen. Like these guys are like, you saw grandmas throwing fucking pickle jars at.
They're a bunch of badasses, man. They really are. It's like so inspirational for the rest of the world seeing how they're standing up. It's crazy.
I knew they were tough. I knew they were tough because I have a lot of Ukrainian friends, bro. I have Ukrainian. They can survive. Like I have Ukrainian. They never complain. None of my Ukrainian friends ever complains about nothing. I've been through some bad shit with Ukrainian people. No problem, bro. Give them a potato and a fucking egg and a pickle. They can last a week, bro.
They're good.
Like they're so badass, bro. They're good at growing shit from the ground. They all fucking good with their hands to fix shit. Like really fucking industrious people, fucking tough as nails. So he thought, oh, I'm gonna roll in. Not gonna happen. So now he's fucking stuck in the Ukrainian mud. And the biggest problem, which is a video I'm going to release today, actually talking about the fact that China is not his ally. He doesn't understand this, I think. China are not his friends. China has conflicting interests. People don't understand this. China hates the US. China definitely does not like the US. China does not love Putin. She and Putin have a great personal relationship. They're like buddy. They're making pancakes together and shit. Like it's cringe. But China has their own stuff to worry about that has nothing to do with Ukraine. They don't give a shit about Ukraine. China's problems getting worse because of Ukraine. And even though you might have heard that China and Saudi Arabia are talking about yuans for yuan petro yuan, it's bullshit.
Yeah. I saw your video that it wasn't going to work. Yeah.
I'll explain in a second why not, if you want, in a little bit in depth. But basically, China has one concern: keep the lights on, feed the people. Keep the lights on, feed the people. The reason why it's the most important concern for China is because otherwise the country goes to shit. It's a massive country. They're not energy dependent, and their whole stability is predicated on the fact that people have food and energy. And their factories can actually make shit because their whole economy is exports. So it's massive export economy based on local cheap production. So you have to feed the people and keep the lights on. What happens if energy prices go through the roof? Who's going to be the one who's going to get fucked the most?
Yeah.
They will, because they're not. What happens when commodity prices go through the roof? Which is two things that are happening right now. Who's going to get fucked the most, right? It's a country that basically has massive populations to feed, and it's the factory of the world. They need cheap energy. And China had an energy crisis just a few months ago. I don't know if you remember this. It has nothing to. So China is already struggling in that sense. So China is basically sitting there saying all the right things. We support Putin. NATO is the aggressor. US is the aggressor because they want to jab at the US and NATO, and they want to kind of show Putin they're on his side. But they haven't done jack shit to support him so far. In fact, they voted against him on the General Assembly vote. I think, I don't remember if they haven't voted for him.
I think you're right.
I think.
Yeah.
But then I don't know if they voted against him, but the only countries that voted for him were, I think, North Korea, Syria, Belarus, and Eritrea, I think, is the only ones.
Yeah.
But so they're saying, you need to work it out. China's saying, oh, you guys need to work it out. Stop this shit, because it's really not helping them. The fact. So Also, like China doesn't want to be caught on the wrong side of history here, because this is quickly deteriorating into some really bad historical. Like if you go back in history, it's not there yet. But if he keeps bombing civilians and shit, like this is going sideways real quick. So China's also don't want to be on the right side. If they want to be the world's reserve currency in 15 years, which is kind of their master plan, they don't want to be fucking, the axis of evil.
Right.
So it's a very dangerous. So China is basically just hoping this thing goes away, and they'll use Putin as much as they can, because okay, if we can get cheaper commodities and cheaper gas and cheaper energy from him, fine. If we can, jab the US while we do it, and NATO, sure. But they're definitely not going to go in the. When the push comes to shove, China is there's going to be a lot of space between them, bro. You see it. It's going to be very different.
Yeah. One of the things that really leads to what you just talked about was, I think recently Biden and Xi sat down, and one of the things that the president from China, or the leader of China, said was that really peace is the primary thing we should be going after, which I think really backs up exactly what you're saying. But even like
cheap gas.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Peace. Yeah. And like, but even in the event that Putin gets a deal, say in the next week or so, I don't even know how much longer this is going to go on for, but it does seem like there's some sort of either stalemate or it's not moving as far as it could. But even in the event that Putin gets a deal. How can you get a deal?
Let's say you want to buy a car. If you can't find the flaw in the car, which you can say, oh, this. If there's nothing, there's no leverage to get a better deal.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So what achievements does he have on the ground? Okay, so they're definitely like surrounding the big cities, and they're pushing, and it's a war of attrition. But there's no like victory.
There's no major victories, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have to have like the flag on the Reichstag, something like that. Like if you go back to history, there has to be like or the Iwo Jima stuff. Like there needs to be like something that's okay. We won. Let's.
Yeah. But like. How is it going to end though? Like it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to do that. Or do you think he's going to be able to claim a victory and then get a deal? Like how are you thinking about that?
He's winning on the ground. He's basically wearing them down with just sheer size. He has more troops, more planes, more tanks. He'll just keep coming and circling them and bombarding civilians to push them out. He's just basically applying pressure. Yeah. So that's kind of it's the same modus operandi. They'll circle the city, start bombarding, and basically squeeze them out. That's the Russian art of war. It's horrible, by the way.
Wow. So just drawn out, just keep basically hurting until they've had enough and they basically retreat, essentially.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
he thought that this is going to work much faster because he thought the army is fake. It's all fucking puppet stuff, and he's finding out these guys are fucking.
They're legit.
They're legit, bro.
Yeah,
they're legit.
Wow. So they're
fighting with like such they're so undermanned and under-equipped, and they're still giving him shit.
Yeah. So you don't see this. Do you see this going on for more weeks, or do you think there is there's going to be drawn out? Yeah, that sucks, man. That fucking sucks.
Yeah, weeks. Unless they can get a deal done. So before I go, I'll tell you something about the stuff with the oil.
Yeah.
So every American should understand the importance of Saudi Arabia to the economy of the US. It's very, very important. It's very important. Now, it's a completely symbiotic relationship. So as much as petrodollars are insanely important for our economy, there's no time for us to get into why in this video, but trust me, it is.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia really needs the US as well. Let's put it this way. For multitude of reasons. There's military reasons. There's economic reasons. The entire Saudi oil industry is intertwined with American money, American infrastructure, American personnel, American companies. Not to mention the fact that Saudi is basically kind of pivoting away from energy into an actual economy, which they hope to get in the next 10 years. And there's massive US money that's involved in this. It's called something 2030. I forgot the name, but it's a big pivot, which again, US money is intertwined there. So Saudis really need the US just as bad as US needs Saudis. These talks with China are not news. People think that this is something that just started now because China has been at it for years, for I think at least 5 or 6 years. And because the Saudis are such good traders, you know what I mean? The psychology of trading, they're like, okay, let's talk, sure, because they know it gives them leverage. So why not? Sure, come over here, we'll host you for a visit. You know what I mean? They're basically signaling. So you're kind of signaling, right? So it makes sense. So this is nothing new. They've never come out officially and said that they're considering that. And that was the kind of the news that came out of the Wall Street Journal articles, like, oh, they're considering it. Now, I don't think this was fake news. A bunch of Saudi officials came out and said this is fake news. This is like BS, blah, 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 blah. I think this was planned. They put it out there to signal, and then they retracted it, right? But they wanted to show, basically, to the US, hey, we need you to play ball. Because the US, since the change in administration, I mean, I'm not even going to talk about Afghanistan or stuff like this. With Saudi, every possible mistake was made with Saudis by this administration. They have their own shit to worry about, which is like nobody in America gives a fuck about this stuff, but they're real for them. They have a war they're involved with in Yemen, which Americans don't even know about. And there's no help there at all. They don't like the Iranians, let's put it lightly. I think Iranians hate Saudis more than they hate Israel. They really like they have some angry relationship with it. So the US is not helping with the Yemenis war. They're about to close a fucking sweet deal with the fucking crazies in Iran. So Saudis are basically saying like, what the fuck? I mean, the fuck is going on? You guys are fucking kidding me? They're basically saying they're basically trying to signal, hey, this is not cool. Now, also, the US has been very, very critical of the Jamal Khashoggi thing, the journalist they allegedly killed in Turkey. Like, there's this whole like they basically killed the narrative that MBS was developing a narrative with Trump of the great like liberalist, like liberalizing Saudi Arabia, and Trump was playing a lot. So they stopped this whole thing. Basically, they're like, oh, you're fucking a dictator, this and this and this. It gotten so bad that MBS didn't even reportedly pick up the phone when Biden called to ask for more capacity from OPEC to reduce the prices a little bit.
Wow.
So he wouldn't. So the relationship is in shambles. Now, does that mean that this is about to happen, that we're about to lose petrodollars? Because make no mistake about it, US and Germany is NATO, and everybody's just following suit. Saudi and UAE is OPEC, and everybody else is just following suit. And Saudi and UAE, they move in complete concert. They have their like that. So if you lose Saudi, you lose the UAE. Okay, they don't do it. So is this also everything I've just told you? Like, okay, so they're about to lose petrodollars and fucking send their economy to shambles, because petrodollars is essentially the building blocks of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, which is the building block of the strength of the US economy. And thank you to Richard Nixon for that. And nobody like gives him credit for that. Brilliant play. But he fucked it up with the goal before, so it's a complicated story. But anyways, so does this mean they'll do it? No. And here's why. Because the fucking Chinese don't want it. Not really. The Chinese are trying to build a relationship to get it done sometime in the future. They don't want it now. And here's the reason why. If you're a 90% exporter, the worst thing you can have is your currency overtaking the currency in which you're selling to. So basically, as an exporter, you want as weak of a currency as possible. Think about it, right? You're selling goods, you're getting US dollars. If the conversion rate is such that you're getting less yuans, you're fucking with the local exporters, which is basically your entire economy. So if you want to make a move on the dollar, the first thing you need to do is you need to pivot away from a 90% export economy into an actual economy that also consumes like what the US has. That needs at least 15 more years.
Got it.
They'll do it, the Chinese.
Yeah.
They'll make a play for it. But the other thing is also, look, let's say they do it, it's a suicide for them economically. If Petro Yuan happens tomorrow, the dollar basically plummets. And they basically fucked because all their export it's a suicide move for them.
Yeah,
they're not going to do it. There's other stuff. I mean, the yuan is not really a world accepted currency. It's not as stable. What kind of rule of law is there in China? Zero rule of law. It's complete fucking random megalomania, communist fucking cockfest, circle jerk. I mean, people disappear, people come back. I mean, they need massive reforms in China. Which would essentially mean the death of the CCP plus complete pivot of the economy to make a move on the dollar, which I think might be relevant in like 2045 or something like that. Then the talks is not about like people like, oh, this is the result of Ukraine. No, it's not the result of Ukraine and Russia and the sanctions. This has been going on for years. And also, this is never going to happen. Yeah. Not in this decade, at least.
Yeah. There's too many pieces that have to happen before that's even a realistic conversation.
But the US is making every mistake possible. Like everything that after
they're
that
catalyzing the movement towards that, basically.
Yeah, but ever since this came out, the US was basically pushing back on that. Instead of picking up the phone without everybody knowing, and say, "Hey, what do you guys need? Let's." Like they're pushing the narrative, like they're pushing back.
Yeah.
Like you can look at the mainstream media in the US, and you'll see what's the mindset of the government is. It's not about like appeasing Saudi. It's going to be like, you see it very quickly. Yeah. They're making the same mistakes again. I think this, also don't forget, and this is kind of a crazy theory, but MBS had a really good relationship with Donald Trump because they understood each other, which is, it's all business, right? You don't think MBS wants to fuck with these midterms by pulling, he just took out a sacred cow, right? Basically talk about, so maybe it's that. There might be a million different reasons, or it might be just fake news. Who knows?
Yeah, but it's always like, even when you say crazy theory, like you never be too surprised at what goes on behind closed doors. And that's one thing that I've like started to learn. And I sometimes saw it with my own two eyes in specific situations, but crazy. Dude, I know you got to go. I can't believe we're at an hour and 20 in already. I had so many more things I wanted to ask you, but I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for stopping by, man. I really appreciate you making the time. I had a blast. You're welcome back anytime. So if you want to swing back, you have an open invitation. I definitely want to pick your brain on Palantir at some point as well, because I have some questions, but we can save that for another time.
We didn't speak about Palantir. Yeah, we have to do part 2 then, for sure.
Let's do part 2. And yeah, man, thanks again for coming on. Really respect the work you do, man. I can tell you're freaking hustling and working really hard. And I can tell you're free doing what you do. And it's very inspiring. It's something that I see that I also want to emulate with the stuff that I want to do. So I want to thank you for being an inspiration, man. I think there's a lot of people that look up to the stuff that you do. And I really appreciate everything you've done. And thanks again for giving me the time, man. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And we're doing part 2 for sure.
Hell yeah. Let's do it, man. All right, everybody. Peace out.
Everybody.